जयो राधा माधव जयो कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधव जयो कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो राधा माधव जयो कुंज बिहारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरावनचारि जयो राधा माधव जयो कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधव जयो कुंज बिहारी नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारि निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय सच्चिदानंद जय सच्चिदानंद जय राधा श्याम सुंदर जय राधा दामोदर जय राधा माधव जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन Jai Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Sudarshana, Jai Sita Ram Lakshmana Hanuman, Sita Ram Lakshmana Hanuman. Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, 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 Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Guru. Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Prem.
Hari Bol.
Jai Jai Shri
Shri
Radhe.
Radhe.
So welcome everyone. While we wait for the others to join, let's do a recap of what we did last week. So we've started the 5th chapter and we've just started. So we did the first 5 verses of chapter 5. And let's quickly revise the gist of what Krishna is telling. So for the new joinees, just a quick recap of the Bhagwad Gita. It starts from chapter 1 with a doubt from, in fact, 5 doubts or 6 doubts of Arjun. He gives 6 reasons why he does not want to fight. And Krishna, chapter by chapter, is answering those 6 questions on why he's taking a wrong decision of not fighting. And he's defeating all the arguments that Arjun is offering of not fighting. And finally, his question at the end of the 4th chapter, again, Arjun says that you're asking me to renounce work on the one hand, on the other hand, you're telling me to fight. So now this is contradictory. Should I work or should I not work? Should I do or should I not do? To which now Krishna is answering that question in chapter 5, correct? We did this so far. So in the first verse of chapter 5, Arjun says that first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again, you recommend that I have to work with devotion. So can you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is beneficial? He's asking Krishna. And then Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, that's the next verse. Bhagavan says, the Lord himself says, the personality of Godhead says, the renunciation of work and work in devotion, both are good. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Right? Karma yoga vishishyate, he's saying. Both will give you liberation, but karma yoga vishishyate is more vishesh. Bhakti yoga or karma yoga is more vishesh. And then he continues to explain to him in the following verses why karma yoga vishishyate. So in the 3rd verse, he explains, Sri Bhagavan, again, Uvacha, one who neither hates nor desires. One who neither desires nor hates the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty armed Arjun. So he's basically trying to explain the cause of our attachment. Who, when we are performing work, हम क्या समझ के वो काम कर रहे हैं? What is our consciousness? On what basis are we executing that work? That makes all the difference between the result that you get. And in the fourth verse, he says, only the ignorant speak of Karma Yoga as being different from Sankhya Yoga, analytical study of the material world. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. We did this, right? That of the two. And in the fifth verse, one who knows that the position reached by means of Sankhya Yoga can also be attained by Bhakti Yoga, and who therefore sees Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga to be on the same level, sees things as they are. So, YG, since we concluded on this fifth verse with you, do you want to summarize your understanding between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga as we did in last Thursday?
Sure. Hare Krishna. Let me try.
Yeah, just
So
your
basically,
understanding between the two.
Sure.
As we're discussing.
Okay. So, I think with Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, you can definitely reach up to one level. Basically, pierce the material world and get into the, the spiritual world. But the ultimate goal of reaching, Goloka Vrindavan or Vishnu can happen only with Bhakti Yoga. This is because with Bhakti Yoga, what happens is not only is there detachment, but there is also attachment to Krishna. Whereas with Sankhya Yoga, I think the maximum that we can go up to is understanding that the soul is separate from, the body, about the Jivatma, and only up to the point of detachment. The attachment part, I think, is missing when it comes to Sankhya Yoga. So that's why Krishna says that Bhakti Yoga, that is, Karma Yoga, doing, work in devotional service is much better than Sankhya Yoga.
Yeah, perfect. That's summarized very nicely. So does anyone have any doubts till what we did last week? It's all clear? Yes, Vaishali. Yes, please.
सांख्य का मतलब क्या है?
Analytical study. Sankhya means theoretical study, analytical study of this material world. जो साइंटिस्ट करते हैं, साइंटिस्ट क्या करते हैं? एक्सपेरिमेंट करते हैं. They try to find out, what is H2, H2 and O मिलकर पानी बन रहा है, कैसे ये दुनिया चल रही है. And through the analytical study of this world, they are trying to find out the creator of this world. It's difficult. It's difficult because the creator does not live in this world. He is beyond this world. But क्योंकि उसने ये दुनिया बनाई है, तो उसी की दुनिया को understand करके, analyze करके, that's why it's called analytical. समझने की कोशिश करना उसको. That's called analytical or Sankhya. Any other? Does anybody want to add anything? All clear till what we did here till the fifth verse. किसी को कुछ पूछना है या do you want to share anything about your understanding of the last class before we start our class today? All clear, right? So, Vaiji, can you read verse 6?
Okay. Do you get this background noise? Because there's some shadi that's going on. Do you hear it?
No, not me.
Okay, that's great then. Okay.
We can just hear you, Vaiji, so please go ahead.
Oh, that's great. That's great then.
You hear the shadi.
I don't want to. It's just that I didn't want it to be a disturbance for everybody, so that's why I was checking.
I can't.
Okay.
I hope the others also can.
Okay. Okay. Okay, 5.6. So just give me a second. Yeah. Sanyasastu mahabaho dukkam atma yogatah yoga yukto munir brahma nachirenadi gacchati. Merely renouncing all
YG,
activities.
YG,
Yet,
can I
yes.
request you to say the transliteration also today?
Okay, you mean the purport as well?
No, why
Sure.
Voice is not clear.
Can you hear me now? Is it okay?
Is it clear for everyone else? Please raise your hands if it's clear.
Yes, it's clear.
So, जिनके लिए क्लियर नहीं है वो अपना इंटरनेट कनेक्शन देख ले एक बार प्लीज. बाकी सबके लिए क्लियर है शायद.
Not clear, Mataji, not clear.
It's your internet connection.
Okay.
Yes, translate.
Okay, merely renouncing all activities,
Transliteration.
yet not which is, you want me to look at okay. Yeah, got it. Sanyasaha, the renounced order of life. 2, but Mahabaho, O mighty armed Arjuna, dukkam, distress, aptum, afflicts one with ayogataha, without a devotional service, yoga yukta, one engaged in devotional service, munihi, a thinker, Brahma, the supreme, nachirena, without delay, adigachati, attains. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay.
So Krishna is further explaining the difference between Sankhya philosophy and Karma Yoga. Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga. He says that, Prabhupada says in the purport, there are two classes of sannyasis or persons in the renounced order of life. The Mayavadi sannyasis who are engaged in the Sankhya philosophy. What is Sankhya philosophy? Theoretical study of Sankhya. For example, like Vaishali was asking, we all want to make gulab jamuns at home and we want to relish them, right? Now, one way is that all of us have a Zoom meeting and we discuss about the ingredients of gulab jamun and how it's made and then once it's made online, then we try to describe the taste to each other. Oh, this gulab jamun, actually it is spongy, it is soft. Can you really taste it? Even with all the pictures that we show and all the detailed description that I give you, it's grainy, it's sweet, it's spongy, it's like paneer, it's this, it's that. I can spend 2 hours on Zoom trying to explain the Sankhya of a gulab jamun. Can you really taste the sweetness? Unless you actually get down on your hands and knees in the kitchen and work with your hands and cook it and offer it to the Lord, and then you taste it. That's when this is the difference between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Clear now? So theoretical study can only get you as much. And after a point, it will irritate you. Where is my gulab jamun? I have studied so much on it. I have done an entire thesis on it, but I still can't taste it. I don't know what it tastes like. Is that right? This is the problem with just dry theoretical understanding of any subject, even Bhagwad Gita. If you don't know how to practically apply the Bhagwad Gita, you will just become a Pandit at the end of the day with no real change in your life, no real change in your mental condition, in your unhappiness. So the Mayavadi sannyasis are engaged in the study of Sankhya philosophy, Whereas the Vaishnav sannyasis are engaged in the study of Bhagavatam philosophy. Bhagavatam is the practicals and Sankhya philosophy is the theory, which affords the proper commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Mayavadi sannyasis also study the Vedanta Sutras, but they use their own commentary called the Sharirak Bhasya, written by Shankaracharya. So Mayavadis are those who follow the Shankaracharya philosophy. Whereas the Vedant, the Vaishnavas are the ones who follow Vyasadev's commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. The students of the Bhagavad school are engaged in Bhakti Yoga, devotional service of the Lord, according to the Pancharatrika regulations. What does this mean? This is a very, very, very important line. I'll read it again. Students. So students meaning there is a book, there is a teacher, there is a student. Correct? Students of the Bhagavad school are engaged in the devotional service of the Lord according to the Pancharatrika regulations, which means they are studying the Srimad Bhagavatam through practicals. The Pancharatrika regulations means practical application ke through they are trying to understand Bhagavatam. And therefore the Vaishnav sannyasis have multiple engagements in the transcendental service of the Lord because they are learning it through the practical application. So they are always busy and they are engaging all their energy, all their senses, all their resources practically. Therefore, they have nothing to do with material activities and yet they perform various activities in their devotional service. But the Mayavadi sannyasis engaged in the studies of Sankhya and Vedanta and speculation cannot relish the transcendental service of the Lord because their studies become very tedious. They sometimes become tired of Brahman speculation and thus they take shelter of the Bhagavatam without proper understanding. Because they are only engaged in the theoretical study, after a while it becomes very tedious and they get into tark vitark, speculation, counter speculation. It becomes very, very stressful for the brain. And when these people, they drop out there, many people, they drop out from the Sankhya philosophy and take to Bhagavatam studies because Bhagavatam is the practical application of Bhakti Yoga. But because they are coming from a Sankhya point of view, even the Bhagavatam, they are not able to understand. Vyasadev's Bhagavatam I'm talking about. Consequently, their study of Srimad Bhagavatam becomes troublesome. Even Bhagavatam starts giving them trouble. So, dry speculators. These words are important. Dry speculators and impersonal interpretations by artificial means are all useless for the Mayavadi sannyasis. If you are not trying to understand these scriptures through qualified devotees of the Lord, because only a devotee of the Lord can explain to you the personality of the Lord, isn't it? Only a child can describe his mother the best way. Can the neighbor describe the mother better than the child? Why? Because the child is directly interacting with the mother. There is a direct exchange of love between the child and the mother. So the child and the mother's explanation of a parent-child relationship is the best and the most authorized compared to the neighbor describing the mother or the relative describing the mother or the RWA of the society describing the mother. Are you getting? Are you getting the practical understanding? So it's very important who you are hearing from. From whom are you studying the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam? Are you studying them from the devotees of the Lord? The practicing bona fide devotees of the Lord? Because only they can decode these verses and give you the practical aspect of them. Otherwise, you will only be engaged in dry speculation. So dry speculators and impersonal interpretations, they twist the meaning of the scriptures by artificial means, and they're all useless for the Mayavadi sannyasis. But the Vaishnav sannyasis who are engaged in devotional service, they are happy. in the discharge of their duties, and they have the guarantee of ultimate entrance into the kingdom of the Lord. The Mayavadi sannyasis sometimes fall down from the path of self-realization. And again, they enter into material activities of a philanthropic and altruistic nature. We did this last week. Now, when Baiji was asking her question, remember, Baiji, that from the Brahma Jyoti, they again fall down. And what do they end up doing? Again, they end up doing charity, opening hospitals, opening schools, opening dharamshalas, this and that. They're called philanthropic and altruistic activities. They are nothing but material engagements again. Therefore, the conclusion is that those who are engaged in Krishna conscious activities are better than sannyasis engaged in theoretical study about what is Brahman, what is not Brahman. Although they will also come to Krishna consciousness, but after many, many births. So either you can develop your immunity by repeatedly getting COVID. इतनी बार COVID हो जाए आपको कि ultimately आपकी body, stops getting affected by the virus. एक तो ये तरीका है immunity लेने का, which is not it's a very painful way, is it not, to repeatedly get COVID. And the other is where you smartly engage in taking precautions, in developing your immunity and taking all the rightful precautions, understanding the nature of the disease. Your journey will be very different compared to both of them will be healed. Both of them will develop their immunity in the long end. But the person who falls sick, gets better, falls sick, gets better, his journey is very different from the person who takes precautions and gets better and develops his immunity. Is it not? So, although they will the Sankhya philosophers will also reach Bhakti Yoga, or they will reach the kingdom of God, but after many, many births. It's a very painful process. Birth again, death again, birth again, death again. So now let me show you the PPT, and that will make this all very clear. Verse number 6. Yeah. So, dry renunciation or the Gyan Marg is very difficult and distressful. All theory, no practicals. That's called Mayavad Sannyasi or Gyan Yoga. Gyan Yoga means you're just studying about Gyan. And actually, 99% of the people have reduced Bhagwad Gita into just a Gyan Yoga. They just sit and discuss about the Gyan part. Nobody discusses about the practical aspect. As a result of which, there is no real change that is made in their life, in their relationships. Now, as you can see in this picture, this is what Gyan Yoga or Sankhya Yoga is. They are engaged in the study of Sankhya philosophy, discussing. This is the Guru, this is the Shishya. So, Guru has a point of view, Shishya has a point of view. Again, Guru gives some counterpoint of view, he gives another counterpoint of view. And they discuss, and it goes on and on and on. And what is their basis? They use Shankaracharya's book by the name of Sharirak Bhashya. Bhashya means a commentary. It is nothing but a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. So this is their book of reference. But they're just engaged in dry mental speculation about Brahman. Brahman is God. But they cannot relish service of the Lord. And since their studies become very tedious and they get tired of the speculation, then ultimately, because the soul is restless, the soul needs activity. And because the soul is not getting to do any activity, just theory, ultimately they leave. They leave this path entirely and they take shelter of the Bhagavatam. But because they do not have a relationship with the Lord, they only have a theoretical relationship with the Lord, then they fall down to material activities again. मतलब जिस material world से छुटकारा पाने के लिए, they took up this whole process of Gyan Yoga, they fell down back into that cesspool again. So these are the two end results of Gyan Yoga. Now let's come to Karma Yoga. as Krishna is explaining. Karma yoga vishishyate. Why? He's asking us, he's explaining. Karma yoga is better than Jnana yoga. Why? Because one, the process is easier. Don't we all want that? And secondly, quickly gives liberation. Not only is it easier, the results are faster and quicker. And this suits Kali Yuga perfectly because our life is very short. Our interest is even shorter than that. We have very limited resources. Ultimately, we are very unfortunate in this world. So we need something that's easy to do and that also gives quick results. So, who is a Vaishnav sannyasi is then much more advanced and more successful than a Mayavadi philosophy. How? Because he is engaged in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam from a bona fide acharya. Whereas here you can see Gyan Yoga is just engaged in Tark Vitark, Sankhya philosophy. But a Vaishnav sannyasi, he is engaged in studying the Srimad Bhagavatam from a recognized, qualified devotee of the Lord who is coming in a parampara, in a disciplic succession. And what do they study? The Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a natural study on the Vedanta Sutra. Instead of reading Sharirak Bhashya, which leads them to a study of Vedanta Sutra, they directly take up to Bhagavatam, which is the practical application of Bhagavad Gita. And it's a natural commentary on all the Vedas. Vedanta Sutra means the summary study of all the 4 Vedas. That summary, so it's better to read the summary rather than going into details of all the Vedas. Anyways, we don't have that kind of time. Now, in Gyan Yoga, there is no physical activity. It's just a lot of dry mental speculation. Whereas in Karma Yoga, it is full of activities. As you can see here, there are varieties of devotional services according to the Pancharatrika regulations. There are 9 different kinds of processes that you can do to understand the practical application of Bhagavad Gita. And finally, the destination of a Gyan Yogi, is again falling back into the material world or reaching the kingdom of God after many, many births. But for a Vaishnav sannyasi or a Bhakti yogi or a Karma yogi, he happily performs devotional service here. And then in this very life, he goes to the spiritual world. As you can see that Krishna is hand holding him back home, back to Godhead. So like we did this last time, we'll redo this again. The difference between renunciation and working. So one should not artificially renounce one's life. Renunciation does not mean leaving your wife, your children and your husband and your home and going away, to Badrinath or Kedarnath or Vrindavan. That, I've now renounced and I'm going to, work on my relationship back home, back to Godhead. No, you can stay in your family life and develop and be renounced. So Mayavadi sannyasis, they need prior purification by prescribed duties to renounce. Whereas in Vaishnav sannyasis or in Bhakti Yoga, just starting the process itself starts purifying you. While staying in Grihasthashram, while staying in your family life, you don't need any preconditions, any pre-qualifications to start this process. Wherever you are, you can start. In whichever state of life you are, you can start. And that process itself purifies you. Second, simply Gyan is insufficient for liberation. Action is a must. And that action is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is full of action. Because the nature of a soul is also to act. The soul cannot stay inactive or stagnant. Consequently, Sankhya Yoga or Gyan Yoga, there is a risk of falling down. But here in Bhakti Yoga, it's guaranteed. Success is guaranteed. There is no risk of falling down. In Sankhya Yoga, the renunciation is incomplete. Whereas here, it is complete because you use everything for the service of Krishna. Here in Mayavad philosophy, you're trying to find the root of this world. Who is the owner of this world? Who is running this world? You're trying to find him. You're trying to find Vishnu. Whereas in Bhakti Yoga, you're trying to water the root. You're trying to serve the root. So one is trying to find out, who is the ruler of this country, who is the ruler of this world. So that also is a situation or a position of pride. Whereas a Bhakti Yogi tries to serve the ruler of this country or the ruler of the world. It's a much more humbler position. Trying to find him, trying to serve him. Big difference. So the results also big. Very big difference in the results also. So the process is to detach from matter. In Mayavadis, you want to artificially detach yourself from your activities. But here you want to develop a relationship with Krishna, with the Lord of the universe. Automatically, if you try to develop a relationship with him, you will start getting detached. You don't really have to work on it separately. There is no happiness, absolutely no happiness in Gyan Yoga. But in Bhakti Yoga, it's full of happiness. Instantly, you can start feeling the results. Within a month, within a week, you can start getting the results. In Gyan Yoga, you have to restrict your senses. So you cannot relish devotional service, which means a relationship. You cannot relish relationships. But in Bhakti Yoga, because there is service, you can relish, you can enjoy multiple kinds of relationships with the Lord. In Gyan Yoga, you have to take many, many births to become successful. But in Bhakti Yoga, in this very life, you can achieve the result. In Gyan Yoga, you have to study Sankhya philosophy. In Bhakti Yoga, you have to study Srimad Bhagwad, which is nothing but the transcendental activities of the Lord, the various leelas of the Lord and the various leelas of the devotees of the Lord. Sharirak Bhashya and Vedant Sutra written by Shankaracharya is what the Gyanvadis follow. Whereas the Bhakti Yogis, they follow the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a natural commentary on the Vedant Sutra. And then there is always a risk of the Gyan Yogi to fall down. He gets bored midway, he gives up the process that it's too much philosophy, too much, it's very dry. And then he leaves this spiritual path altogether and comes back to the world to become a great businessman or a great NGO owner, and back to his old sufferings. Because charity also cannot relieve you of your mental trauma or your mental sufferings. We just we feel that by working for others, we will be able to relieve, but that's not the full solution. Whereas in Bhakti Yoga, you have multiple engagements in devotional service according to Pancharatrika regulations, and hence it's much more joyful. Clear? Easy? Next verse. 7th verse. Vaiji?
Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyah sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvannapna lipyate. Yoga yukta, engaged in devotional service, vishuddhatma, a purified soul, vijitatma, self-controlled, jitendriya, having conquered the senses, sarva bhuta, to all living entities, atma bhutatma, compassionate, kurvan api, although engaged in work, no, never. Lipyate is entangled. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear, though always working. Such a man is never entangled.
So is it clear to everyone, or is there was there any disturbance?
Yes.
There was, right? Vaiji, do
Yes.
you have a weak signal?
Sorry?
Do you have a weak signal at your place?
Yeah, yeah, it seems okay to me. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is like just one or two bars.
Okay. So I'll read the translation again. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. So, purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is very dear to him. This is due to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means Bhakti Yoga. This is the symptom. This is the first result that you will get when you start practicing Bhakti Yoga. Every living being will become dear to you, and you will become very dear to every living being. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches. Or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Alag se to nahi malte na. If you want, supposing you have pain in your hand, do you take fresh beetroots or fresh vegetables and scrub them on your arm? No, you eat something, right? And the nourishment automatically goes to your arm. So any part of your body has a problem, you only send food through your mouth to the stomach, only one place. That automatically takes care of all the other parts of the body. This is a very important aspect. You don't have to separately go to this Devi Devta, that Devi Devta for this work and that work. You just water the root. All the Devi Devtas are satisfied. There are 33 crore Devi Devtas. There is a Devta even who is responsible for the batting of your eyelid. Everything in your body is dependent on a Devata or a Devi. Your own digestion is not in your control. There's someone responsible for that as well. How many will you pray to? How will you satisfy all of them? How will you pay your debt to all of them? By paying your debts to the controller of all of them. Simple, isn't it? You just water the root and all the Devi Devtas are satisfied. So, because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant to all, he's very dear to everyone. So, what is Bhakti Yoga? Bhakti Yoga is taking the position of service, taking the position of a servant. We've done this in multiple classes, isn't it? How do you try to develop a relationship with Krishna? How? By trying to become a servant of Krishna. You know? This is the way to earn the love of all living beings through service, trying to serve them. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. And who is getting the biggest benefit? Because in the material world, in our modern world especially, the position of a servant is looked down upon. Everybody is trying to show how well accomplished they are, or how they are the masters of their destiny, how they are the masters of their job. Everybody tries to show that they are at a good position, or they are in control of their family, they are in control of their kids, they are in control of their relatives. Everybody is trying to show how they are in control, how they are in control of their happiness, how they are. What is all the social media all about? We're just trying to show how good a controller we are. Consequently, the more you try to show and become a controller, the more unhappy you become, the more mental diseases you accrue. But the more you take the humble position of a servant, the more happiness you get. You get free from anxiety, you get free from depression, you get free from the karmic reactions of trying to be an owner. which is a very big, very, very big result to get free from karmic reactions. So, because he's pure in consciousness, mind becomes controlled. Who wants to control their mind? Anyone here? How many of you are tired of your mind? Because our mind is our master right now. The mind tells you, go get me this. And the poor you runs to satisfy the mind. And no sooner have you finished that job, the mind gives you another job. Now get me this. Again you run. And no sooner have you finished that, the mind gives you two more. Now get me this. Again you run. It's a relentless slave. Therefore, success goes to the person who is able to say no to the demands of the mind. The mind tells you to do something and you say no. Sit quietly. I will do it when I want to do it. This is the secret of success. But his mind is always fixed on Krishna. There is no chance of his being deviated from Krishna. Nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of the Lord. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. And he does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. This is the barometer to check how are we progressing in Bhakti Yoga. Are you really having these feelings? Don't like to hear anything except topics of Krishna? Do you still feel like hearing other topics, other kinds of music, other kinds of anything? Gossip, other people's kathaएं, news, songs, chatter of friends, relatives, talking on phone. Do you like that more than Krishna Katha? This means we have a long way to go. Our sadhana still has a long way to go, or we are short on our sadhana. And this is the root cause of our suffering. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. And he does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. How many of us live like this? Therefore, the senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjun offensive to others? Wasn't he Krishna conscious? Well, the answer is Arjun was only superficially offensive. Because, as he already explained in the second chapter, all the assembled people on the battlefield would continue to be spirit souls. Souls don't die. So they would continue to live. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present there. Therefore, Arjun, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. So we will not get sinful karmic reactions if we live according to Krishnanuvartinam, according to the rules of Krishna, according to the codes of Krishna. If you live like a Krishnanuvartinam, you will not, your sinful bank account or karmic bank account will be 0, 0. And if that bank account is 0, 0, no suffering. You're not going to get any. There is no police standing outside your house to come and vasool karne ke liye your, what is that called? The udhar that you have taken from them. You know, no? जब उधार ले लेते हो बैंक से और उसको जब रीपे नहीं कर पाते, what is the bank's way? वसूल करने के लिए वो they hire, you know, these very पहलवान kind of people. उनका काम सिर्फ ये है, आएंगे आपके घर तक, घंटी बजाएंगे, बोलेंगे पैसा नहीं दिया, पैसा दे दो, बोलेंगे कुछ नहीं. मतलब there is no मारधाड़ or anything. It's just डराना. Every day they will come. Every few days they will come. पैसा चाहिए, आपने पैसा नहीं दिया है, हाउ आर यू गोइंग टू फील एंड व्हाट इज योर क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ गोइंग टू बी? कभी भी घंटी बजेगी, यू विल फील ओह कहीं वो तो नहीं आ गए, फिर से वो तो नहीं आ गए. दिस इज हाउ आवर सिंफुल रिएक्शंस कीप विजिटिंग अस टाइम टू टाइम. फिर कुछ करने की कोशिश करते हैं and you get some sinful reaction, again you get some punishment, again you get some punishment, and to such an extent that you start getting the quality of your life becomes you're living in fear and dread. क्या करूं क्या ना करूं, ये भी काम गलत हो गया तो मेरे साथ सब कुछ गलत ही होता है, जो मैं काम करने की कोशिश करती हूँ उसमें बुरा ही होता है, never get the result. It is actually our own. I saw a very nice video, cartoon video that explained the law of karma. Usme this person, he is walking just a simple trip to the supermarket, है ना? तो वो अपनी गाड़ी में बैठा तो already, and he was not driving mindfully. He was, not allowing the pedestrians to pass. He was not kind at the red light to a child that came up to him. So every time he spoke badly, or he drove too fast or overtook someone.
कट रही है.
Okay. अब ठीक है? Is it okay?
हाँ जी, अभी ठीक है जी, अभी ठीक है. हाँ.
बाकियों की आवाज कट रही है क्या? बाकियों के लिए? So प्रीति, आपका इंटरनेट में प्रॉब्लम है. So every time that man behaved badly, they showed one karmic.
अभी ठीक आ रही है माता जी.
There is one karmic. प्रीति, आप ना म्यूट रखें और आप अपना ही
मैं चेक करती हूँ.
इंटरनेट ठीक करें अगर कोई दिक्कत हो तो, है ना? So there is a karmic fellow sitting on his head. Every time he spoke badly, one fellow came and sat. और उन्होंने कट मारा या किसी एल्डरली को है ना धक्का देके आगे चला गया, another person came and sat on his head. No, by the time he reached the supermarket, वहां पे भी कुछ चीजें, एक आध चीज उसने चोरी से अपनी बास्केट में डाल ली, एक और बंदा सिर पे आके बैठ गया, कार्मिक रिएक्शन. फिर बिल लिया, बिल को ऐसे ही फेंक दिया सड़क के ऊपर, लिटरिंग का एक और कार्मिक रिएक्शन. छोटी छोटी चीजें हैं. सो बाय द टाइम वो वहां से सुपरमार्केट से आके अपनी गाड़ी में बैठा, हिज हेड वाज फुल ऑफ दोस लिटिल demons of karmic reaction. An unkind word to someone, trash फेंक देना, किसी से ठीक से अपनी टर्न की वेट किए बगैर जल्दी से आ जाना. तो उसका इतना भारी हो गया कार विद ऑल दोस कार्मिक रिएक्शंस. अल्टीमेटली वो अपना चल रहा है हाई स्पीड पे, तो एक वो कार्मिक रिएक्शन नीचे उतरा गाड़ी में और उसकी ब्रेक का वो तार तोड़ के फिर से ऊपर आके बैठ गया. एंड दे शो दैट हिज कार की ब्रेक्स फेल हो जाती हैं, ब्रिज के ऊपर कार चली जाती है और he falls into the river. मतलब he is about to fall. वो ब्रिज के ऊपर लटक रहा है, गाड़ी ऐसे है, लटक रही है, नीचे गिरने वाली है, बट कुछ कार्मिक रिएक्शंस है पीछे, अभी पूरी तरह नहीं गिरी है और वो अंदर बैठा है. इतने में उसने जिस बच्चे को डांटा था या बुरी तरह जिससे बात की थी, उस बच्चे का जो कार्मिक रिएक्शन है वो पीछे भागता हुआ आ रहा था, गाड़ी के पीछे भागता हुआ आ रहा था. और by the time because he is standing on that bridge for a long time, so वो karmic reaction was able to catch up with his car. So that karmic reaction was the last that jumped on the car, which allowed the car to dip. And headlines, innocent man, poor man fell into the river. Nobody is innocent and poor. उसकी क्या गलती थी बेचारे का, he lost his life. ये हमारे अपने karmic reactions हैं. We don't even know what all we are doing throughout the day, trying to become the lords and masters of this world, living this life like rajas. Mere liye, everything is mere liye. Not once are we stopping to think, how can I serve Krishna according to the codes of Krishna? Talking according to Krishna, eating according to Krishna, speaking according to Krishna, spending my time according to Krishna. फिर वो जो छोटे छोटे हैं वो सब डिलीट हो जाएंगे, सब गिर जाएंगे. नहीं करोगे तो वो इकट्ठे सारे हो जाएंगे, फिर आपको धीरे धीरे रिएक्शन मिलना शुरू होगा. देन वी विल ब्लेम, इसकी वजह से हुआ, उसकी वजह से हुआ, मेरी वजह से नहीं हुआ, दूसरों की वजह से हुआ, जो भी हुआ. दैट वाज सच अ पावरफुल वीडियो, So you will become so mindful. But once you start doing bhakti yoga, automatically those karmic reactions on our head, they are shot one by one through bhakti yoga. So how much of bhakti yoga are you practicing in a day? Completely depends on how much you are getting rid of your karmic reaction. Bank balance zero karna hai bilkul karmic reaction ka. Hai na? So the more you're doing devotional service, the more you are getting rid of karmic reactions. So it is entirely in our interest. हम इसमें कितना time लगाते हैं. Such a person is never entangled in the reaction of work. Such a person. So this is what verse number 7. Let me share the screen with you. Verse number 7. One who works in devotion, a pure soul, working in devotion has a controlled mind, controlled senses, and he is dear to everyone. तो सबसे पहले तो भक्ति योगी और अ पर्सन इन डिवोशन, उसकी रियलाइजेशंस क्या है? पर्सन्स एक्टिंग इन निष्काम कर्म योगा, है ना? उसकी रियलाइजेशन, उसकी कॉन्शियसनेस कैसी है, पहले ये देखो. He sees all living entities as spirit souls who are all parts of Krishna. Therefore, hence dear to all and all are dear to him. है ना? This is his consciousness. And इस consciousness के साथ naturally उसकी activities कैसी होंगी? He will always try to water the roots. And he will always try to feed the stomach. Because he knows that if stomach is fed, all the parts of the body are fed. If the root is watered, all other parts are taken care of. What is the meaning of these two? ये दो examples का मतलब क्या है? Servant, नौकर, acting as a servant to all living entities. Only then can you become dear to all. Not by leadership, not by controlling them, not by power. That will not make you become dear to everyone. Not by having maximum Instagram likes or Facebook likes, or telling people how well you're doing bhakti yoga. None of these things are going to help you. Service, only service. Acting as a servant will make you dear to everyone. So ये तो हुई consciousness of a bhakti yogi. अब actions क्या हैं? जैसी पहले thoughts होंगी अच्छी, तभी तो actions बनेंगे. So actions कैसे होंगे? Mind and senses are completely controlled. How many of us want this? Senses are controlled, mind is controlled. Devotee is a servant to all, therefore he is dear to all and he satisfies everyone. Thus he is always pure in consciousness. And pure consciousness leads to mind and sense control. And if mind and senses are controlled, automatically they become fixed in Krishna's service. So there is no chance of falling down. Servant की position अगर ले लोगे, there is no chance of falling down, and you are able to control your senses and your mind. ये तो हुए actions. And finally results क्या हैं ऐसे action के? You are never entangled, because work is not based on the desire of the mind and senses, but your work is based on Krishna's desire. So how can Krishna be offensive to others? He was not. वो अपने लिए तो लड़ ही नहीं रहा है. He completely gave up to Krishna and he said, Krishna, okay, for you, here, I'm going to kill my uncle, my grandfather, my brothers, my Tauji, my kinsmen. I'm going to kill them all, because neither am I in charge of this battle, nor am I looking for particular results at the end of this battle. I don't care whether Pandavas win or lose. I don't care whether we are made the king of the world, whether Yudhishthir Maharaj is placed on the throne or Duryodhana is placed on the throne. I don't care if all my relatives die. All I care about is you have given me one instruction and I'm going to follow it. So as long as he's carrying out the orders of Krishna and Krishna consciousness, he has no karmic reaction. Even killing is not going to give him a reaction. Can you believe this? अदरवाइज ऑर्डिनरी सर्कमस्टांसेस में अपने ग्रैंडफादर का कत्ल कर देना का रिएक्शन होगा कि नहीं होगा? छोटे बच्चों का खून कर देना, उनका रिएक्शन मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा? बट he got reaction for none, because Prabhupada gives this example always that 1 minute, I'll have to go and open. Okay, they look.
Mataji, can you share PPT by that time?
हाँ, sure. Sorry. So, are we good? All clear here? Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. Okay. Last two verses. 8 and 9. Paiji?
Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyate tabit pashyan shruvnan sprishnan jishnan ashnan gachan swapnan swashan pralaban vrisijan grishnan unmishan nimishan api indriyani indriyateshu vartanta iti dharayan. No, never, ever, certainly, kinchit, anything, karomi, I do, iti, thus, yukta, engaged in the devotional consciousness, manyate, thinks, tattva vit, one who knows the truth, pashyan, seeing, shruvnan, hearing, sprishsan, touching, jihnan, smelling, ashnan, eating, gachan, going, swapan, dreaming, swasan, breathing, pralapan, talking, visrujan, giving up, grishnan, accepting, unmishan, opening, nimishan, closing, api, in spite of, indriyani, the senses, indriyateshu, in sense gratification, vartante, let them be so engaged, iti, thus, dharayan, considering. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with your objects and that he is aloof from them.
So, a person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence. And consequently, he has nothing to do with any work which depends on 5 immediate and remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and the fortune. This is because he is engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is that of a knocker, Krishna ke knocker, which is spiritual engagement. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification. But in Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna. Take this call. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in the affairs of the senses. Activities such as seeing and hearing are actions of the senses, meant for receiving knowledge, whereas moving, speaking, evacuating are actions of the senses meant for work. A Krishna conscious person is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord, because he knows that he is the eternal servitor of the Lord. So if you don't want those little karmic reactions on your head who are waiting to hit you with the results, at all times start developing this consciousness that I am a servant of the Lord and I have to work only as his servant and his obedient servant. Then you will not get any reaction of whatever you are speaking, whatever you are eating, whatever you are giving, whatever you are taking, where you are going, where you are stopping. Even just by living and breathing, we are taking sin. Can you believe that? Just by breathing. जिंदा रहने का भी हमें sinful reaction मिल रहा है. Why? Because वो श्वास हमने as a भक्त नहीं ली, या हमने भक्ति का कोई उसमें काम नहीं किया. We did not conduct ourselves. We did not use our breath in the service of the Lord. ना उनके गुणगान में कुछ बोला, ना उनका नाम जपा, ना उनके बारे में कुछ सुना. केवल इस कान को हम अपने फायदे के लिए यूज करते रहे, मुंह को अपने फायदे के लिए यूज करते रहे. एज अ रिजल्ट इतना सारा कार्मिक रिएक्शन इकट्ठा हो रहा है. और जब ये बहुत ज्यादा हो जाता है, then boom, we will get some misfortune in our life. Can you see how we are being trapped by our own actions only? Nobody is to blame here. But if you just mindfully take little steps, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, it's not so difficult. Let's see the PPT. Here, a person in divine consciousness or Krishna consciousness, although engaged in activities, knows that only the material senses are engaged with objects and that he is aloof from them. So, जो निष्काम कर्म योग करता है, उसकी पहले तो consciousness कैसी होती है, realizations कैसी हैं उसकी. He knows that the material activities as interactions of senses with sense objects. He knows that the soul is inactive materially. इसका practical application क्या है? He's pure. He's aloof from actions which depend on the 5 immediate and the remote causes. And he's always conscious of his actual position as a servitor. Servitor matlab, read this word servitor as a servant. His senses are engaged in Krishna's service only. So ये 5 चीजें हैं. The doer, काम करने वाला. The work, क्या काम कर रहे हैं वो. The situation, the endeavor, matlab the effort, and then the fortune, the result. Doing the work in a particular situation with some effort and the result, the fortune. These are the immediate and the remote causes of our existence. So all those actions which involve these 5, उससे वो दूर रहता है हमेशा. So कैसा action होता है फिर उसका? He's always engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, but he's always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. Senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. So although he is seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, breathing, although he's doing all this, but he always knows that he's actually, that does nothing at all. Only the material senses are engaged with their objects and he's aloof from them. और इस तरह की consciousness का result क्या है? Free. Free even when he appears to be engaged in the affairs of the senses. He's free. How? Because he's cooking, but for Krishna. Whatever work he's doing, he's donating the results to Krishna. According to the rules of Krishna, he's doing his work. If he's studying, walking, talking, moving from here and there, according to the rules of Krishna. Archanam. Navda Bhakti in short. As long as you're engaging all your activities, keeping Krishna as the center or keeping the rules of Krishna as the center, you don't get reactions. Otherwise, भर भर के reactions मिल रहे हैं. और ये it's only a matter of time. जब घड़ा भरेगा तभी वो गिरेगा. जब तक घड़ा भर रहा होता है हमें लगता है ओ आई एम डूइंग एवरीथिंग परफेक्टली वेल, कोई रिएक्शन नहीं मिल रहा. एक्चुअली रिएक्शन मिल रहा है, वो अभी इतना इकट्ठा नहीं हुआ कि गिरे. इकट्ठा होने दो. Like they used to tell Prabhupada, you keep saying that animal killing, this, that, illicit sex. Look at the Western world. They are doing everything. And they are prospering more and more. कोई इनको रिएक्शन नहीं मिल रहा है. इतना मीट ईटिंग हो रहा है, इतना प्रोस्टिट्यूशन है, इतना फ्री मिंगलिंग ऑफ मेन एंड विमेन है. व्हाट इज दैट, गैम्बलिंग हो रही है. So much of it is going on. But look at the condition of India, so much of poverty, and look at the standard of living here. Everybody wants to come here. Prabhupada looked at that person and said, just wait. In due course of time, when the Pap Ghada fills to the brim, then it will start toppling over. And we can see it today. पिछले 50, 60, 70 साल में घड़ा भर रहा था, कोई रिएक्शन नहीं मिल रहा था. अब भर चुका है and it is toppling over. Now you can hear the same news. California, सूखा. कहीं और बाढ़. Divorce almost 90% तक पहुंच गया है. Mental depression बच्चों तक आ गया है. Shooting शुरू हो गई है. Shortage of power हो गई है. Blackouts हो जाते हैं. People are without cooking gas, without electricity. And these things are unheard of. Unheard of. In America, in these undeveloped countries, why? घड़ा भर रहा था. अब payback time. Now it's payback time. It's going to get worse. It's not the end. This is just the beginning. So never get fooled by this. We have been conditioned to think कि सब कुछ ठीक चल रहा है. इसका मतलब हम कुछ ठीक ही कर रहे होंगे. Results come with time. Results don't come immediately of our karma, of our karmic reactions. They take time. जैसे बटरफ्लाई बनने में कितना टाइम लगता है ककून को, कैटरपिलर, फिर वो क्या क्या बनता है, फिर क्या क्या बनता है. वो आप वो when you see the egg, you will never believe कि इस egg में से इतनी सुंदर पीले रंग की बटरफ्लाई आ जाएगी. काला सा egg होता है. But in due course of time, it happens. Similarly, if you do not take Krishna consciousness seriously, the karmic reactions are going to come in on a future date to you. And then you will have nothing but regret in your hands. So start now, start young, and become serious. Take this process seriously if you do not want reactions. Take baby steps, one step at a time. Nobody is saying, become an expert right from day one. But become serious. Take it seriously. So become Krishnanuvartinam. Follow the rules of Krishna. Junk, throw your own rules of life in the dustbin. Burn it in the Lodi fire of winters. Apne rules, apne style of living, raising a family, eating, drinking, sleeping, jo bhi apne rules hai. If you really want to have a peaceful, happy, quiet, retired life, then it's the only way. Otherwise, be ready for the reactions with no one to blame. but ourselves. The warning is already there. It's an easy process, but follow it, maybe get the results. So again, ABCD, just be in devotee association. As long as you are in the association of devotees, you will keep getting the inspiration, the guidance to live according to the codes of Krishna, because the world belongs to Krishna. He is in charge. He has made the rules. We are tenants here. We are living under his laws. We are not in control. So an intelligent person will follow the rules of the king who is in charge. He will accept the position of a servant or a praja. So he is the king and we are the praja, and the praja remains happy as long as they follow the rules of. गुड़गांव में रहते हैं, गुड़गांव के rules follow करने हैं. We cannot break the laws. Otherwise, the municipality, the administration will come back and will hound us. Isn't it? If we break the laws. Similarly, ये जो universal law है, universe में हम रह रहे हैं, इसके भी कुछ laws हैं. Live according to those laws. Follow those rules and regulations. Then you will have a peaceful stay here. You will not be given any what is that called? Loan की demand आपसे नहीं की जाएगी कि आपके ऊपर इतना कर्जा है, वापस करिए. ऐसा कोई आपको चिट्ठी नहीं आएगी कभी भी. And end of life, you don't have to come back to this horrible world, this horrible place of misery and death. So one has to become very serious about living as a servant. In short, live like a servant of Krishna. Follow his rules. With that, we close. अब आप बताइए, किसी को कुछ कहना है? हाँ जी,
मेरा क्वेश्चन है,
बताइए.
माता जी. एक तो जो हमने उसमें एक सेकंड, 1 सेकंड, the first verse that we did today ना, जिसमें ये था 2 type of सन्यासी. तो सांख्य योग होता है ना, सांख्य योग बोलते हैं, जैसे सांख्य योग और ज्ञान योग एक ही है.
या एक ही है.
अच्छा, ओके, आई थॉट दे वर डिफरेंट.
नहीं, अलग अलग नामों से
सांख्य, ये सांख्य योग एनालिटिकल स्टडी बोलते हैं ना.
यस.
And Gyan Yog is also the same, you're saying, okay?
Also the-
Speculative knowledge वाला यही नहीं होता. वो
Same.
माया philosophy
ये
होती है,
देखो,
speculative.
ये देखो, मायावादी सन्यासी ज्ञान योग. ये देखो,
हाँ ठीक है.
ज्ञान
ज्ञान
योग
योग
नीचे क्या लिखा है? Engaged in the study of Sankhya philosophy. So ज्ञान और सांख्य एक ही चीज नहीं हो गई?
राइट.
और क्या क्वेश्चन था आपका?
मैं बस ये समझना चाहती थी that इसमें ये लिखा ना, a person in divine consciousness knows that only the senses are engaged in their objects and he is aloof from them. जो ये वाली line है. So but I'm just trying to understand for my clarity that the desire always originates within the soul, है ना? बट यहाँ पे इसके हिसाब से मतलब ये कि जब हम कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस में आ जाते हैं तो बिकॉज आवर ऑल द डिजायर्स आर डवटेल टू द डिजायर ऑफ कृष्णा, दैट्स हाउ वी आर एबल टू सी द material senses and objects acting separately other than, you know, and we are aloof. Is this how the whole trail is, है ना?
Yes. Whenever a desire comes, examine it. Is this favorable to Krishna consciousness? Then only engage in it. Desires तो आएंगे. It's not कि अभी से we cannot block our desires, our needs, our wants. Let them come.
ठीक.
But don't act on them if they are not favorable to Krishna consciousness. Let them pass.
हाँ यही था मेरा.
Otherwise, remember that each desire, each thought, each action, each word is coming with that little.
Yeah, please share that video.
हाँ.
ठीक है।
श्यामानंद प्रभु,
It's a Radhe Shyam Prabhu's.
राधे श्याम प्रभु है ना, अगर तुम्हारे पास है तो उसे भेजना. व्हाट अ फिनोमिनल.
I was trying to finding out that lecture, लेकिन सिर्फ वीडियो नहीं मिल रहा है वो. It must be somewhere in that lecture.
उस लेक्चर में ही
Middle of
था
the
वो, उस लेक्चर में ही था. व्हाट एन, मतलब उससे वो एकदम से समझ आ गया.
Yes.
सो
And share the lecture, Hema, at least.
Yeah, yeah. मैं ढूंढना पड़ेगा किस लेक्चर में सुना था.
हमने
याद
कहाँ
नहीं.
देखा ये हेमा? अभी रिसेंटली मैंने वो देखा.
हाँ, रिसेंटली यूट्यूब पे आया था. जस्ट आई रैंडमली मैंने देख लिया था वो वाला लेक्चर उनका. तो उसमें ये वाला वीडियो था. आई थिंक हाउ टू कंट्रोल माइंड था या ऐसे ही कुछ था. रिसेंट लेक्चर है उनका.
Yeah. So be mindful. That's all.
ठीक है. Thank you.
हाँ जी अंजलि.
ओके, कंप्लीट करिए. हेमा कुछ कह रही है?
नो अंजलि आप कंटिन्यू करो, मैं बाद में.
So just before we started this class, I was reading the पीछे वाला lecture from this Bhagwad Gita as it is further explained. That book you had recommended, तो मैंने लिया था.
हाँ, yes.
This one.
हाँ.
तो इसमें वही verse 4 and 5 what we had done last time. It says that the material world is working with 24 elements.
कौन से हैं ये 24 एलिमेंट्स, ये पूछ रही हो?
हाँ जी. तो उसमें मेरे को कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा था. The
पेज
5
नंबर
working.
बताओ, पेज नंबर क्या है?
252.
Chapter 5, 252. हाँ जी. Which line? Where?
नीचे से 8th 9th नीचे से.
6, 7, 8. The 5 working senses.
Yes. हाँ.
The 5 working senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the mind, and the
11.
mind 11, and Panch Mahabhut. Panch Mahabhut means the material elements of
The earth. Yes.
11.
So 11 and 5 become 16.
Then
Then
there's the subtle elements.
subtle. Yes.
Mind
16
intelligence.
and 3 19. Yes.
19.
के बाद 5 sense objects.
So 16 and
24.
2 makes 19, and 5 sense objects.
So 24.
Gandha, Sparsh, Shabda. In this way, Sankhya Yoga analyzes the whole material world, dividing it into 24 elements. हाँ.
So beginning में जो is the 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses. ये कौन से हुए? बाद में के तो समझ में आए 14. These 5 and 5. First when I read 5 working senses, I took it to be the 5 जो sense organs, जो कि नीचे लिखा हुआ है.
मैं भी वही सोच रही हूँ, मुझे भी वही लग रहा है.
मैं बताऊं, working senses माताजी are hands, your legs, and they are like taken as one, like both hands, then both legs, then I'm forgetting, but then there is
mouth.
mouth and
ears.
nose, because we breathe through the nose, तो वो भी it's a working sense उस aspect से.
यही ना ये आँख, नाक, कान,
नहीं माताजी, ये अलग है. और एक जो last working sense होता है, which is for your excretion.
Digestion.
And yes, so both उसको उपस्थ and गुदा बोलते हैं, मुझे हिंदी में याद आ रहा है. और दोनों हाथ, दोनों legs, उपस्थ, गुदा, and your I think nose को, क्योंकि we breathe through the nose. उसको मिला के working senses वो वाली है.
तो hands हुए, legs हुए, nose हुए.
Nose 3 and evacuation, 2 evacuations. So 5 हो गए ना?
हाँ जी.
2 for evacuation. So 5.
5 working senses, and what are the 5 knowledge acquiring senses?
Knowledge acquiring
Knowledge
senses.
acquiring यही है आपके eyes और ears, 2 eyes, 2 ears,
skin
and skin. Yes.
Tongue, nose, and skin.
हाँ, yes. क्योंकि इससे
I have
knowledge
one
मिलती है
book where there is a list of this question. What elements constitute the material nature? 5 gross elements, 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 sense objects, the mind, the intelligence, false ego, and
वो तो इसमें दिया हुआ है. You are reading the same thing.
so these 24 elements constitute the material nature. What are the 5 gross elements? Earth, water, fire, air, and ether. What are the 5 working senses?
Even
Voice.
ये सब तो already is written here, but what is not written is which are the 5 working senses. We are deliberating on that.
And 5
So
knowledge
voice-
acquiring
so
also. I was confused about these
So-
5 and 5.
So just hear out. 5 working senses are voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. 5 knowledge acquiring senses are eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and skin. And what are the sense objects? Form, taste, sound, smell, and touch. And
then 5
what element?
gross and subtle. इसके अलावा.
Yeah, so gross body and subtle body. So gross, subtle body is mind, intelligence, and false ego.
Creative.
Gross body made of earth, water, fire, ether, and so all these constitute 24 elements.
Yeah. And the bottom line is his Sankhya philosophy is based on these. In 24 को, so we don't have to अपना सिर इस पे बहुत लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है. It's not important because हम सांख्य philosophy नहीं करना
हाँ.
चाहते हैं. भक्ति
I
होकर.
was just कि 5 working and 5 knowledge acquiring.
Yeah, but good you brought it up. मुझे भी clarity मिली.
ये भगवद
बहुत बार
गीता
भगवद
के
गीता में.
I'll
Sorry.
click
ये
the pic
चैप्टर
and share
13
in the
का
group.
7 श्लोक का है.
Yeah.
चैप्टर 13 का 6 and 7 श्लोक उसमें ये और
ये वाला.
क्लियर है.
चलो
हाँ.
ठीक है. Great.
अच्छा,
लिख लो. वहाँ पे लिख make a note. Chapter
हाँ.
13.
Okay, I will.
श्लोका for these. ये हेमा आप कुछ पूछ रहे थे?
7.
No, nothing, Mataji. I was just thinking about the shlokas what we did today.
Yes.
That the karmas works, reactions works, but something happen. If something happen, good or bad, we say it's Krishna's mercy,
Yes.
because now we understand our own position and his position. So
Mhm.
that's why we say like that. So how we can connect our karmas and the reactions and the mercy of Krishna?
What do you mean how we can connect? How can we say कि जो बुरा हुआ वो कृष्ण की मर्सी थी? ऐसे?
नहीं, बुरा हुआ, अच्छा हुआ, हमारी कोई मूवमेंट हुई या फिर हमने कोई डिसीजन लिया, whatever.
Yes.
हम कोई while taking any decision हम उन्हीं को साक्षी रखे या फिर we ask या फिर we concern कि हम ये काम कर रहे हैं, तो वो directly तो हमें आंसर नहीं देते, but we go forward with that work or with that decision. So we are the like हम जो है, how we can connect it. As of now I am thinking, yes, I am a servant of Krishna and everything.
So, it is through consultation, Hema. आप decisions जो लेंगे, you consult devotees and take decisions.
Okay.
Because we are relying on our own mind, that is dangerous. Always work in association of devotees and consultation of senior devotees, advanced devotees. Then you will know that you are working as per Krishna's goals. So everything boils down to devotee association, and accept whatever is favorable to practicing bhakti yoga and reject all those things that are not favorable to bhakti yoga. चाहे कोई भी एक्टिविटी है, लोग हैं, फूड है, जगह है, better to avoid them and reject those activities that are not favorable or that is going to spoil your mood of bhakti yoga, of Krishna consciousness. So that is the way. पूछ के guidance में चलिए. That is why this is a Prabhupada. Why did Prabhupada make this ISKCON society? For guidance and support. As a group, we can go forward. Because pag पे हमें guidance, help की जरूरत पड़ेगी. So one should not live whimsically. अपनी समझ के हिसाब से जिए. Guidance में जिए. हमेशा. ठीक है जी. हरे कृष्ण.
Okay, Mataji.
You made also say Hare Krishna. That's very nice.
सारे ही, नीचे सिक्योरिटी से लेके वो डिलीवरी गाय से लेके सब।
गार्ड भी बोलते हैं ये हरे कृष्णा वाली माता जी के घर जाना है, हमने कहा
हाँ, that the main gate guard says only.
नहीं, वो हमारे टावर वाला भी बोलता है। It's
हाँ
preaching.
टावर वाला ही तो
Preaching, no, you have to induce people to say Hare Krishna as many times as possible. That's purifying the atmosphere. They don't know it, but हम तो पढ़ रहे हैं ना. We know it. It's so crucial. जितनी बार बोलेगा सामने वाला, जितनी बार हरे कृष्णा बोलेगा, उतनी बार कुछ कर्मिक रिएक्शंस के सिर से गिर गए नीचे। तो वहां पे इतने सारे इकट्ठे हैं, गिर गए। You are doing them a favor. You're doing the society a favor. You're doing everybody a big favor if you're inducing them to say Hare Krishna. Even if they say, प्रभुपाद को एक बार, कितनी बार मैंने ये एग्जाम्पल दिया है कि एक आर्टिकल शुरू में छपा न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स में, गालियां दे रहे हैं प्रभुपाद को, इस्कॉन को। तो डिवोटीज भागे भागे आए, प्रभुपाद लुक व्हाट दे हैव रिटन। प्रोफेसर, अच्छा, व्हाट आर दे रिटन, रीड। उसमें इतना बुरा लिखा हुआ है, दे आर लाइक दिस, दे आर ब्रेन वॉशिंग, दे आर दिस, दे आर दैट, दे आर डूइंग कृष्णा। एंड प्रोफेसर, ओके ओके ओके, सेड काउंट हाउ मेनी टाइम्स दे हैव रिटन कृष्णा इन दिस आर्टिकल। तो उसने गिना, प्रभुपाद 17। ओह, इट्स अ गुड आर्टिकल, वेरी गुड वेरी गुड। मतलब क्रिटिसाइज करने के लिए भी अगर उन्होंने कृष्णा का नाम 17 बार ले लिया, पढ़ने वाले में भी उसको 17 बार पढ़ा, बहुत शुद्धि हो गई उसके दिमाग की भी और एटमॉस्फेयर की भी, बहुत शुद्धि हो गई। सो लेट पीपल थिंक व्हाट दे वांट। दे थिंक दिस इज जस्ट सम सेंटिमेंटल, जी आप तो यादें करोगे, हम तो साई साई करते हैं। दे थिंक कि कुछ भी कर लो एक ही बात है, हम तो दुर्गा दुर्गा करते हैं, हम तो जी शनि शनि करते हैं। इट्स नॉट द सेम, इट्स नॉट द सेम, रिजल्ट्स आर नॉट द सेम। जो विष्णु के नाम का रिजल्ट है वो किसी और के नाम का नहीं। नो बाबा compares to that. So you are actually, this is Krishna consciousness. ये ने केने प्रकारे ने आप ये करिए। Yeah. Any other question? So my son cleared, आज सुबह उसका फोन आया, he cleared his CFA. वहाँ जॉब के साथ उसने अपना सेकेंड एग्जाम दिया, बहुत मुश्किल था, छुट्टी लेके दिया एंड ऑल दैट, एंड ही गॉट द रिजल्ट yesterday. तो my dad, ये जो बीच में मैं उठ के गई थी, there was so much of confusion. My father sent some Jagannath sweets from the temple for this, to celebrate Shivang's this thing result. तो वो सेक्टर 45 से आके कोई मुझे कुछ दे रहे हैं, मैं कह रही हूँ नहीं मैंने नहीं मंगाया, मुझे नहीं चाहिए। वो कह रहे नहीं आपके लिए, ये आप मुझे दे रहे हैं, वो मुझे कोई नंबर दे रहे हैं, उसी में इतना टाइम लग गया। एंड आई एम सेइंग दिस डजंट बिलोंग टू मी। सो देन फाइनली वन कुछ कॉल्स की कनेक्शंस हुई एंड देन दे सेड ये जी आप ही के लिए है, ये आपके पिताजी ने भेजा है, ये आप रखिए।
माता जी बहुत बहुत बधाई, इतना बड़ा एग्जाम अभी एंट्रेंस क्लियर किया है।
Yeah, good.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
This was level 2, na? Level
Level 2.
2.
Level 2.
Congratulations, Mataji.
Sorry, I missed that. कौन सा एग्जाम क्लियर हुआ पास?
CFA दिया, और ये इसलिए भी सिग्निफिकेंट है हमारे लिए क्योंकि ये 5 बार पोस्टपोन हुआ केवल शिवांग के केस में बिकॉज ऑफ कोविड। मतलब उसने 5 बार 8-8 घंटे बैठकर 15-15 दिन या 20-20 दिन तैयारी की, 5 बार, एक महीना की तैयारी की फॉर 10 hours स्टडिंग अ डे। तो वो बिल्कुल ही हैड गिवन अप, आई एम फेड अप, क्योंकि तैयारी करो फिर एग्जाम पोस्टपोन हो जाए, फिर भूल जाते हैं 5-6 महीने, फिर दोबारा से तैयारी करो, 5 times कैंसिल हुआ बिकॉज ऑफ कोविड। और वहां जाकर अब जॉब शुरू हो गई, तो जॉब के साथ तो और भी ज्यादा मुश्किल था बिकॉज जॉब का अपना प्रेशर। सो देन ही, it was my husband who told him that you take the exam and finish it now only, as your job increases more, the pressures of job will be more, तो कोई बात नहीं कर ले। तो उसने छुट्टी ली जॉब से, अपने पूरे साल की लीव एक ही बार में उसने ले ली और फिर से बैठ के पढ़ा और he was grudgingly doing it कि नहीं मैं I don't want to do it now, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. And we told him later is even more tough. We don't know what the situation of the world will be. You do it now. So बहुत grudgingly उसने किया कि अभी मेरे से मैं कर नहीं पाऊंगा, because too much workload and settle भी हो रहा था, अकेला वहां पे रह रहा है, कोविड है ये वो. And again 2 days before the Omicron virus came और पूरा लॉकडाउन लग गया कनाडा में भी, यूएस में भी. एंड वी वर लाइक नॉट अगेन प्लीज, 6th टाइम ये पोस्टपोन हुआ तो ही विल नेवर, यू नो, ही इज गोइंग टू बी शैटर्ड बिकॉज इट्स नॉट अ जोक सिटिंग फॉर 10 hours टू स्टडी फॉर दैट एग्जाम. एंड लकीली just he as he gave, the shutdown happened.
Now it's a lockdown there or it's open now?
मतलब काफी रिस्ट्रिक्टिव हो गया है. एक तो वैसे ही -20 डिग्री है, अभी तो स्नो है सब जगह.
-25, -30.
हाँ, इसकी बेटी हमारी दोनों टोरंटो में ही है. प्रीति की बेटी और मेरा बेटा, वो लेक तो फिर बिल्कुल फ्रीज हो गया है.
और यहाँ पे आंधी चलती है, वहाँ पे या रेत की, वहाँ पे बर्फ की आंधी है. सीन फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम डॉटर तो डरी गई. उठ के जब निकली रूम से, रूम के शीशे से देखा, बाहर नहीं आई क्योंकि मम्मी पहली बार देखा था. डर गई, मत ये क्या हो रहा है, पूरा सफेद सफेद और बर्फ बर्फ. तो उसको फिर लगा कि अच्छा मतलब
एंड इट इज वेरी एक्सट्रीम कि आज वो उससे बात कर रहे हैं तो 2 डिग्री है.
हाँ.
और कल बात कर रहे हैं तो -20 डिग्री है. इतना जबरदस्त, +2 -25 ओवरनाइट. तो कल दिखा रहा था कि बाहर देखो ये धूप निकली हुई है, इतनी धूप मुंह पे आ रही है. और कल अगले दिन बात की तो बिल्कुल बर्फ की चादर, नो सन, काला रूम, एवरीथिंग. आई सेड व्हाट हैपेंड. ये देखो, ये वही जो कल यहाँ पे सूरज बरस रहा था, आज वहां पे एक सफेद चादर है. So it is very extreme. नर्क है
So
मेरे
how he is working from home these days?
हाँ, working from home. All of them working.
स्कूल से बंद कर दिया फिर उन लोगों ने. विद्या बताएं थी. I think my daughter is coming on 4th को चल के 5th को आएगी. And they're praying every day, भगवान बस आ जाए, so that after 2 years she is coming. देखा ही नहीं उसको 2 साल से.
February में?
जी.
अरे वाह, इतना पैंडेमिक में आ रहे हैं.
अरे उसने अक्टूबर में उसने अपने ये क्या कहते हैं टिकट्स कर दिए. और तब तो ये था कि फेब में सब अच्छा ही होगा, लेकिन अभी उल्टा हो गया. डेली एवरी टाइम आई प्रे कृष्णा जी, भगवान जी बस आ जाए ठीक से. और मुश्किल तो बहुत है. एंड अनफॉर्चुनेटली उन्होंने टिकट्स भी बुक कराए ना, जो नॉन रिफंडेबल करा लिए टू सेव लिटिल बिट मनी. ये है, तो अगर नहीं आए तो बहुत उनका नुकसान भी हो जाएगा.
चलो कोई बात. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय. श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. गुरु महाराज की जय. जय जय श्री राधे. So I'm really enjoying the morning japa sessions with all of you. It's become so good. Hamara highest score is 13 people. Almost 13 of you come every day, which is a very big jump for Nandini Bhakti Vikshas. Of course, shuru wale log to nikal jate hain, but they are there all the same. So all of you are joining and chanting. Aapko bhi acha lag hi raha hoga. You know, it's really nice that we are chanting together. Anjali, keep coming.
कभी कभी रह जाता है. Yes.
कभी कभी रह जाता है, but yeah, most of the time सब आ रहे हैं, which is very nice. And the more you chant, the more our karmic reactions sitting on our head are also being destroyed. मतलब wholesale में they are short off. So chanting is very very powerful. हमारा जितना karmic backlog है वो उसको destroy करता जाता है. And chanting is also one way of completely nullifying all the karmic reactions that we have already, जो हमने अभी तक इकट्ठे करे हैं, समेटे हैं. Easiest way. So increase your chanting till you reach 16 rounds. It's in your benefit. It's entirely in your benefit. If you want your khata to be 0, karmic bank balance ka khata to be 0, just chant. Okay.
हरे कृष्णा माता।
वैशाली, सब ठीक?
हाँ जी, बिल्कुल।
वहां पे भी सर्दी है पुणे में?
कम हो रही है अभी, मतलब नॉर्थ